What's up, guys? Politics Gaming here, and today I am going to be looking over the midterm election of 2018 in the United States. For those who do not know, for those who live outside of the United States, the United States basically has elections every 2 years. So there are presidential elections, and then there are what are known as midterm elections. Midterm elections are basically in between the actual national presidential election, which is every 4 years. So the last one is in 2016, which awarded the victory. The Electoral College voted for President Donald Trump to become president, and he has been president ever since January 20th of 2017. So on November 6, 2018, the United States is going to go through what is known as a midterm election. So again, this is basically where Congress is up to basically switch parties about who is running the parties and stuff like that. So I have a couple of things, and I'm going to be using RCP, Real Clear Politics, today. This is pretty reliable, honestly, because they honestly use a compilation of polls and stuff like that, and until the election, and whenever I do cover the election coverage on November 6th of 2018, I do believe I'm going to be doing a few of these, of a couple of election analysis, actually. So we're going to go ahead and look at the first one, which is going to be the battle for the Senate. So RCP is showing that from what polls are showing right now, if the election were held right now, 48 Republicans would be elected into the Senate, 44 Democrats would be elected into the Senate, and 8 would be up for grabs. So these are what are known as toss-ups or battleground states. So this is basically showing the races in the entire United States that are too close to basically call for either party. So in states that, like, a Republican should be winning, then it's actually being more competitive this year. So like such as Arizona. Arizona, we are looking at a race between Martha McSally, Kelly Ward, and Joe Arpaio. Joe Arpaio was actually pardoned by President Donald Trump. He seems to be a third-party contender in this race, which I do believe he is actually going to be able to hurt the Republican race, and is actually whoever is running for. And what we're looking at right now in Arizona is this is the Republican primary. This is going to be between Martha McSally, Kelly Ward, and Joe Arpaio. Joe Arpaio is a controversial sheriff that actually was pardoned by President Donald Trump. So this is actually just, does look like McSally is actually in the lead, 31.5. These are only polls. These are not actual results from an election. So we have all of that. So basically, for this, I'm not really going to be making a map out on what this is. I could actually use 538 for that, but I'm only going to be going throughout the situation, and then maybe in the next election analysis I can actually do something such as making a map and stuff like that. But I'm only going through the basics of it right now to kind of show to people, because I do know that I have a really big foreign subscriber base, so I'm basically trying to educate them if they do not know, or not educate, but really just kind of like show you guys what's going on in the United States. If you guys do have a suggestion on any foreign elections you think that I should actually cover, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. But anyway, I'm going to get back to this. So these states of Arizona, Nevada, North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Florida are up for grabs. Well, actually, a lot of these states, including my state of Texas, is actually up for grabs this November. All the states that are colored and actually gray are up for grabs. But the only two races, or actually several races, that are likely GOP are in Missouri. Missouri 2, actually, because there's actually 2 Senate races going on in there. We got Nebraska, Wisconsin, Wyoming, and Utah. So anyway, this is the map for the Senate. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one, which is going to be U.S. House. Basically, the U.S. House of Representatives is compiled of 435 members of people that are elected across the United States. So these are people from such as in Minnesota. So we got a Minnesota 8 right here. This is the 8th congressional district of the state of Minnesota. So someone gets elected here, and then they get to represent that district in the U.S. Congress, so which is known as the House of Representatives. So all of the colored ones that you see right now are actually what RCP is actually concentrating on, or there are polls coming out of. These are what are known as battleground districts. So these are districts that the Democrats and Republicans are going to try and flip for one another. Screen kind of screwed up there. So such as in New Hampshire, there are 2 congressional districts. One of them is up for grabs, and one of them is actually likely or even safe Democrat. We have the state of Pennsylvania. West Pennsylvania is actually seeming to be safe Republican, except for Pennsylvania 17. I think Pennsylvania 17 was the one that Connor Lamb actually won, so I don't think... Actually, yeah, this is one that Connor Lamb won, but he has to run for election again because he was just basically a filler in for that. So this is Connor Lamb's district right here. He's still having to run this November, but I think he's going to be uncontested in that race. Philadelphia is right here for those who do not know. It does look like Pennsylvania 5 is actually going to be a battleground for the House of Representatives. This is going to be between Kim and Scanlon. So that is a race that some people may want to watch over, but all of these races are basically a lot of races that you want to watch over. California is actually going to be very interesting this year because there's actually a chance of the Democrats actually losing seats in both the state legislature, the governorship, and even the federal House of Representatives. And there's a lot of Democrats that are trying to keep their spot in California. I'm not familiar if Nancy Pelosi is actually able to run, or if she is running. I don't think so. I think I would be hearing about that. But yeah, the state of California is actually going to be a very interesting race this year. However, and for those who don't know, you hear this a lot in American media and stuff like that. We always talk about demographics and stuff like that. Basically, what we're talking about whenever we're talking about demographics is the demographics of how people vote. So in the United States, white people are more likely to vote Republican. Hispanics are more likely to vote Democrat. Black people are more likely to vote Democrat. A lot of non-white people are more likely to vote Democratic in a lot of races, especially in the national races, but which is actually apparent. This is actually apparent. So we have the governorships. The governorships are actually the United States. A lot of governors are actually Republican. And this is actually very surprising because there's a lot of very liberal states that are actually controlled by a Republican governor. So such as Massachusetts. Massachusetts is where Elizabeth Warren actually comes from. She's a very high-level Democrat. And the governor of Massachusetts is actually Republican. Same thing for Vermont. Vermont is one of the most liberal states in the country beside California. And their governor is actually a Republican. And again, this is actually the state that Bernie Sanders came from. And I bet a lot of you guys really know who Bernie Sanders is. But yeah, this is basically the situation in the United States for the race for the House of Representatives. I will have a more in-depth look, which I will separate into several videos for the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, the governorship, and so on and so forth. So this entire video is just basically just kind of like a synopsis, or just kind of like an overview of what I'm going to be covering over the next couple of months. So Next off, we're going to go ahead and look at the governor races. I basically just kind of went through this. There are 4 states in the union that are actually going to be battlegrounds. John Kasich, who ran in 2016 to become the president of the United States, ultimately lost his bid against now President Donald Trump. Ohio voted for John Kasich in Republican primaries, and they voted for Donald Trump in the presidential election. Michigan voted for Donald Trump in the presidential election by only 13,000 votes. Only 13,000 votes separated Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the presidential election. So we should actually be seeing very good Democratic numbers in Michigan. However, I will have to go in and do a really detailed look in the next video. So whichever one of these looks you want me to do first, just comment down below what you guys want me to do first, which was governor, Senate, House, whatever. Nevada voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, but I do believe they actually. Let me look at this. They do not have an incumbent. I'm unfamiliar with who the current governor's party is. However, we have Steve Sisolak, who is running for the Democratic nomination, who is the Democratic nominee, and then Adam Laxalt, who is the Republican nominee. So, and then that's basically it for the governor races. It's very straightforward. In my state, we actually have current governor Greg Abbott. He has been in office since 2014, and he won during the red wave, basically, in 2014 against then President Obama. He is running against former Dallas sheriff Lupe Valdez. I actually know Lupe Valdez because I've actually met her at several gay parades I actually went to. I went to one gay parade and I actually saw her over there. And she's actually a very famous person in the city of Dallas because she is openly lesbian and she's openly lesbian, and she's also the first Hispanic woman to actually win the nomination for the major party in the state of Texas, which is not real. I'm not really saying that. I'm literally just saying that because that's literally what it is. But I'm not saying that's why she should get elected. I'm not even saying that she should get elected. But like, I'm completely unbiased here. I'm just going through that. This is just my state situation going on right now. This is the governor race for the state of Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next one. This is going to be President Donald Trump's job approval. This is basically news agencies going through and basically saying, how do you think Donald Trump is doing in his office right now? What do you think he's doing? And then so these change over time. And so historically speaking, Donald Trump has had the lowest approval rating for any sitting president in the first several months of his office. At the lowest point that he ever got to on a RCP average was 37% approval. That was his approval rating, with 58% of the country disapproving of him. Nearly 60% of the country hated him. And in the beginning, this started off at a kind of a more like equal level. And then it really shot up after he became president. The highest it has ever been at is 46%. And it's just been downhill. But now ever since about December, which is actually when the Democrats actually had the highest margin for victory against the Republicans, which I'll show you that in a minute. He had a 37% approval rating, and that was just disastrous for any president. But now it's actually gotten really close now. The RCP average is showing 52.8% of the country does not like him, while 44.6% of the country actually does approve of his policies. The highest approval rating for him is from Rasmussen. However, they do lean. I do think they lean Republican, or they're more just they're kind of more lenient on the Republican, and these guys, all of them have these biases and stuff like that. And there's actually, I think RCP actually rates them by how biased they are for a certain party. So next off, I'm going to go to the 2018 generic congressional vote. This is basically just it's a same thing with the presidential job approval, but it's basically just contacting people and saying, who would you vote for in the midterm election? So they have polls for this from 2002, 2006, 2010, and 2014. And so those were the last 4 midterm elections that the United States has had, from George W. Bush to Barack Obama. So the biggest margin was a 13-point average margin on RCP, when the Republicans had a 36% chance, not chance, but it's the Republicans basically would get 36% of the vote, while the Democrats would nearly get half of the vote. And ever since December, like the end of December and the beginning of the year, that number has actually been dropping. Okay, so you can see a 13-point margin. Right now, that margin is only 3.2 points. That is disastrous for the Democrats, and the Democrats really need to pick up their game if they really want to take seats, because we were, at this point right here, we were talking about a blue wave. Basically, a blue wave is about maybe 5, 10, 15 point difference in how the Congress of the United States would shift along party lines. This is a blue wave right here. This would be a blue wave if the election were held right now and the vote would come out exactly like that. That's a blue wave. You come out right here, Republicans are barely going to lose anything. And if history can tell, like, this is the approval for the Democrats and Republicans in 2006, in the months actually leading up to the 2006 midterm election. Republicans had a last minute kind of jump at the end of that, but they ultimately did lose under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. However, Nancy Pelosi has been leading the Democrats toward a path that they have lost more seats across the nation. I'm not trying to say Nancy Pelosi is a bad person. I'm going off of the facts here. Nancy Pelosi has actually lost more seats nationally than any other Democratic leader in history. Not history. I'm not going to say that because I don't think it's in history, but she's on the history books right now because of that. I'm going to go ahead and see what the 2002 election shows. This was actually the last time that a president's party was actually able to hold both houses in the midterm election. So in 2000, George W. Bush was elected, and usually the quote-unquote tradition is that the president's party usually loses seats in the midterm election, because people always say, okay, well, I don't like you. It's kind of normal, but it kind of isn't. But this party, this election in 2002 was actually very good for the Republican Party and President Bush's party during that, because most of the affecting factors that actually went into this was the September 11th attacks, and then it was also, I think it was the war in Iraq. Well, the war in Iraq didn't really start by 2002. Really, what was going on is that it was kind of having a lead up, and he was kind of saying, well, they did this, so we need to do something about it. And then direction of the country. This is basically another poll that asks, how do you think the country is doing right now? So the worst thing that it has ever gotten, ever since this poll started, which this poll actually started after President Obama actually got in office. It started out with, let me look, 69 disapproving, going in a wrong track, 23 saying going in a right track. The only time this has ever actually been positive, or nearly positive, is whenever it was half and half. in June on June 14th, 2009, and then go all the way to 2011. 17% of the country felt that the country was going on the wrong track. 76.5% of the country felt it was going on the wrong track. I think I just repeated that. But yeah, you know what I mean. So this is just all of it. Got really low right around that point. But right now we're looking at a 39% going in the right track, and 54.2% going in the wrong track. So guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and tell me what kind of in-depth analysis I should actually do if you guys really want to see more of this. This again was just a synopsis of what the situation is for the midterm elections in 2018. If you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one whenever I cover the battle for the Senate, the battle for the House, or even the battle for the governorships. Take care.